wind howled, and I grabbed my candelabra and wandered through the dark. What's up, my channel? It is your friendly neighborhood Sassy Blonde writer here, coming at you with some writing advice. Now, it is almost Halloween, and that means it is time to get spooky. So today we are going to be talking about Gothic literature. What makes something Gothic? What are some examples of Gothic literature? Where does the term come from? And how do I know if I have a Gothic story? Let's get started. What is Gothic literature, you ask? Okay, so I thought when I was researching for this video that would be an easy question to answer. I have since learned it is not as easy an answer to find as one would think. Many of the sources I found said Gothic literature is Gothic because it has Gothic imagery. Cool. Thanks. I love when people define something with its own term. Britannica defines Gothic literature as a Gothic novel, a European romantic pseudo-medieval fiction having prevailing atmosphere of mystery and terror. Heyday was the 1790s, but it underwent frequent revivals in subsequent centuries. Gothic literature is a genre that emerged as one of the creepiest and eeriest forms of dark romanticism in the late 1700s. It is a literary genre that emerged as one of the larger romanticism movements. Dark romanticism is characterized by expressions of terror, gruesome narratives, supernatural elements, and dark but picturesque scenery. Where does the term Gothic come from? That's something that I have been wondering a lot ever since I heard the term Gothic literature. You probably heard about it in your high school English class. If you're in high school English, you're probably going to hear about it eventually. The term Gothic was coined by classic Italian writers who attributed the invention, and to them what was neoclassical ugliness, of medieval architecture. So basically, a bunch of snobs in Italy said anything ugly was Gothic.
Called Gothic because its imaginative impulse was drawn from medieval buildings and ruins, such as novels commonly used as settings as castles or monasteries equipped with subterranean passages, dark battlements, hidden panels, and trapdoors. The vogue was initiated in England by Horace Walpole's immensely successful castle Otranto. His most respectable follower was Anne Radcliffe, whose Mysteries of Udolpho and Italian are among the best examples of the genre. A more sensational type of Gothic romance exploiting horror and violence flourished in Germany and was introduced in England by Matthew Gregory Lewis with The Monk. Other landmarks of Gothic fiction are William Beckford's Oriental romance Vathek, sorry if I said that wrong, and Charles Robert Merton's story of An Irish Faust, and Melmoth the Wanderer. The classic horror stories Frankenstein by Mary Shelley and Dracula by Bram Stoker are in the Gothic tradition, but introduce the existential nature of humankind as its definitive mystery and terror. However, it was easy pickings for satire as well.
I also read that Gothic fiction came about as a very sophisticated joke. Think Addams Family. Horace Walpole first applied the word Gothic to a novel in the subtitle A Gothic Story of Castle of Otranto, which is considered the first Gothic novel ever to arise. It was published in 1764. When he used the word, he meant something like barbarous as well as derived from the Middle Ages. How do you know if you have a Gothic story? Well, the answer is actually kind of like a little checklist or a bingo card. You might have a Gothic story if it takes place in a castle or a mansion. The action takes place in or around an old castle or an old decrepit house or mansion, or in the ruins of one of those things. You probably have Gothic imagery. Sometimes it's because the edifice, that would be the building itself, is seemingly abandoned. It just creates this creepy atmosphere. If you are thinking about this and the hair on the back of your neck or your arm is standing up, you probably have some Gothic imagery going on. Think haunted house or the Addams Family. The giant candelabra, the absurdly ornate decorations and cherubs everywhere, the dark color palette, despite the fact that everything is very, very over-the-toply decorated. It's a very dark color palette. You won't see a lot of bright colors or pastels. Anything bright and cheery, bye-bye. Extra points if you can't tell if the building actually has occupants or not. Castles or mansions, extra points if you have a secret passageway, a trapdoor, secret rooms, trick panels with hidden levers, dark and hidden staircases, and possibly ruined sections. Extra points for that. Also might have a Gothic story if suspense and fear is in the air. What does that mean? You're walking around and there's a sudden rush of cold air. Was that a ghost? No, it couldn't be. Is someone there? Oh, it's just the window. If your main characters are constantly guessing at their own sanity, that builds suspense, that builds fear. If they're constantly second guessing what they think is happening, you probably have a Gothic situation going on. You also might have Gothic imagery if you have a sudden disappearance. So let's say you're traveling with your friend and you come across this old mansion. All of a sudden, your friend disappears. Did they disappear to scare you? Or did someone take them? Or maybe they're just hiding. Bonus points if they end up dead later. That always builds some more fear. Anything supernatural or unnatural going on. This is kind of, if you watch my video on plot twists and mysteries, it's kind of the opposite. If you have anything supernatural or just unnatural things going on, you have some Gothic imagery in there. I'm talking omens, visions, prophecies, curses are all examples of the supernatural. I'm also adding unnatural, although it doesn't come up on most lists because back in the day, books like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was considered Gothic literature. However, it's also considered science fiction. It does not involve anything supernatural. Everything that happens is based off of science, specifically galvanism. If you don't know what galvanism is, don't look it up. It's really creepy. Don't look. Galvanism was the unnatural movement of a dead body. You really can't get any creepier than that. But anyway, so it uses galvanism, and if you research that, it makes it even creepier because it's not supposed to be happening. That's the hallmark of this. Supernatural, unnatural stuff. It's not supposed to be happening in nature. You might have a Gothic story if someone, usually a woman, is in distress. If a man says, "Stay here, I'll be right back," in a Gothic film or a Gothic book, either he ain't coming back or she's gonna disappear before he comes back. Bonus points if they are threatened by a powerful, usually male, figure as well. That's another hallmark of the Gothic literature genre. You might have a Gothic story if the metonym for gloom and horror. What is a metonym, you ask? I did not know before I made this video, so it's okay. A metonym is a subtype of metaphor in which something like rain being used to emulate sorrow and crying is used to stand for something else. So when something, usually like a weather pattern or something breaking, is used to stand in as a metaphor for something else. So it's a very specific type of metaphor. For example, the film industry loves to use metonym as a quick shorthand, so we often notice that it's raining in funeral scenes. It's really sunny at the wedding we're happy about. It's raining at the wedding we're not happy about. There's tension between the married couple and something spontaneously breaks in the house. This explains why they never oil the freaking hinges on the doors in a Gothic novel. It's supposed to sound creepy as a metonym. Note the following metonyms for doom and gloom all suggest some element of mystery, danger, or of the supernatural. So an example of the metonym would be like what I said before with the cool rush of air. Is it a ghost? Is it a person? It's just a window. That's an example of a metonym for something creepy going through the air. Another example of Gothic literature is amplified emotions. She's not just crying. She's in a bit of hysteria. She's not impatient. She's anxious. She's not just nervous. Her nerves are on edge. You want to amplify all the emotions as heightened as possible, probably to the point of melodrama. That is what amplified emotions is basically all melodrama, but that's a topic for another video. You also want to make sure you're using onomatopoeias. Now that's kind of the cherry on top with the Gothic literature stuff. The other elements are just are essential elements. The onomatopoeias are just kind of the cherry on top. The door didn't just squeak, the door creaked. Other examples of metonyms, you have the wind, especially if the wind is howling. You have rain, especially if it's blowing and beating against the windows. You have the door grating of rusty hinges. When will they finally get some WD-40? Sighs, moans, or howls and other eerie sounds. Maybe it's the wind, maybe it's a person, who knows? Clanking chains, footsteps approaching, lights in the abandoned rooms, thunder and lightning, some crazy laughter. Bonus points again for the ruins of buildings. You don't want to just communicate what they're feeling. You want to communicate the different creepy sounds in the house. There's a shriek. They didn't just scream, they shrieked. Heightened emotions are also all about the vocabulary of the Gothic. So it's not just a mystery, it's diabolical. There are ghosts, it's haunted. It's not just fear, terror, or sorrow. There's an affliction. They think they're being poisoned. That sort of thing. You also want to use some hyperbola. It's not just deep grief, it's intense distaste. There are more examples in my sources down below. These are all essential elements for different Gothic story elements. So if you're trying to write a scary story, I highly recommend you incorporate some of, if not all of these things, or at least most of them, into your story to really give it that just extra edge, those heightened emotions, that scary atmosphere. Make the hairs on the back of people's necks stand up as they're reading. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe. Yeah, and subscribe to my channel. I post new videos 1 to 2 times a week. And of course, happy writing and happy Halloween.